in the last month, I did it was like $21,000, and it was like my third or fourth full month selling, and my margins are 45%. So I'm making over $8,000 literally with the copy and paste with no extra effort and without really consuming that much risk, because I already have the product at Amazon and I'm just going to take it to.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Side Hustle Experiment podcast. Today we got Trevin Peterson, 8-figure Amazon seller, does TikTok shop, Amazon influencer program, a whole bunch of different stuff, big YouTube channel. Me and Trevin met in person a couple times, and we just talked recently, and I was like, we got to get you on the pod. So thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity.
Of course. You want to give everyone like a little background, kind of how you got started selling at Amazon and kind of got your start?
Yeah, so as a kid, I've always wanted to build my own business. So I had a poop cleaning business, I had a lawn mowing business, I had a garbage can cleaning business, and I'd make the money and I'd get home and I'd iron it. So I'd grab my mom's the ironing board, and I'd iron the money, and I got the crispy dollar bills. And so there's always just this fascinating process for me, at least, to start something and then do something and then in exchange for money. And I just always had that kind of desire. And I started kind of my online journey back in 2016 when I needed to buy a wedding ring for my wife. And obviously at the time she wasn't, and I didn't realize that this was the beginning of kind of my online selling journey, but this is kind of where it started. And the way that I was able to buy her ring was I was going around the house, even though my parents may have not have consented on some of the items, but I was just grabbing things and I was selling them online. So I'd list them on our local marketplace on Facebook, and I was just kind of selling stuff. And I was able to get up enough money to buy the wedding ring. I think it was like, what, $1,800 is the cost of the ring. So I was just selling stuff, and I was like, I just need to get this ring. And then, long story short, we obviously got married, and then we moved into these condos, and right across the street was, he's now one of my best friends. He had an online e-commerce business, and he started telling me about it. I'm like, oh, like I can sell stuff online. Like, let's do it. And so I kind of dove into the YouTube and just started going down the rabbit hole of selling things online. And that led me to Shopify dropshipping, which that didn't go as planned. And then it led to Amazon FBA, where a friend introduced me to that. And I was like, oh, this solves all my problems. And so that's when I dove into building my own brand. So I come from a private label background, even though it kind of started with reselling stuff. I'm just out of my parents' house. But then it led to Amazon FBA private label. And I started launching products after product after product, kind of failing, figuring out the process. And then it was like 6-7 months into it, I kind of dialed things down and I got my first kind of successful product. And I was like, hey, this works, and I want to go all in. That was back in 2018, and I basically haven't looked back ever since. And as you mentioned, I've done now over 8 figures selling on Amazon, and then it's led into the realm of doing YouTube, doing TikTok, affiliates, and selling. And so it's just led to a lot of different things and has just really evolved over time. And I guess I'm a serial entrepreneur. I have that shiny object syndrome where it's, hey, this opportunity looks good, this looks good. And I've tried to kind of stay in my niche of selling, but it's also been fun to kind of branch out to do some other ventures.
So have you had the same brand since 2018?
No, it's kind of, I guess, the same brand name, but okay, the brand has evolved over time to where, like, at the very beginning, I was selling party decorations. And that was kind of my niche. And then it evolved into like accessories and like lanyards and wallets and different, they're like stationary items. And then it evolved into another brand, which is what I'm currently selling. And so that was kind of like the evolution of, like, it started here to now where it's at. And where it's at now has been awesome.
And you plan on exiting, or are you just kind of keeping it for the... Yeah.
So that's the goal. So I have 2 main brands on Amazon. So I have 2 separate accounts, and I definitely want to exit one of them. And looking back, I should have exited back in like 2021, when that was kind of the time that money was cheap. These conglomerates like Thrasio, for example, raised like $4 billion or whatever, and they were just buying up Amazon brands left and right. They ended up actually going bankrupt, which is kind of crazy. And if I would have sold at that time, it probably would have been better. Where now money is a little expensive and the multiples are just not as good. So I'm kind of waiting for the right time.
Yeah, I remember looking at those multiples back then, like 2020, 2021. I was like, this is crazy. You like make $100,000 a year brand, you could sell it for like $2 million. What's going on? It's like, what are the multiples now? Like 3 to 5?
It ranges anywhere from like 5 to 6.
Oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean it's good, but obviously it's gonna depend on your brand itself and how healthy it is. Like if it's a brand that's been around for a couple months, well, you're probably gonna get a lot less. But if it's a brand that's established and it's been around and you're on multiple platforms, you've actually built something that's not just easy to duplicate, then that's where the multiples are gonna obviously increase.
Yeah, that makes sense.
For private label, when you're kind of building your products or whatever, do they have like a long shelf life? Or do you, like, kind of how you said you evolved, like, were they just not selling, or you just kind of found better opportunity?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So
If you want the exact spreadsheet I have used to sell over $3 million on Amazon, how I track my buys, how I track my best sources, where I put links to my favorite sites, I have a spreadsheet that I've spent the last 2-3 years building. If you want access to it, it is absolutely free. Just go to the free resources section down below this video. 100% free. Now let's get back to the podcast.
So it's a yes and no. There are products that are definitely going to have a lifespan of, let's say, 6 months to 18 months type of thing, where it's like really, really hot. And you can continue selling those products, but they probably aren't going to continue at the pace that they were when you first launched them or within the first year that you launched them, where competition came in or the demand has gone down a little bit. And so that definitely does happen. But for the most part, like one of my best sellers, I've been selling since, honestly, so I still sell it. And it was one of my very first few products that I launched back in 2018. And I still sell that product to this day. And it crushes it during Christmas. So during kind of the 9 months of the year, it sells probably like 1 to 5 units a day. And I just try to maintain throughout the year. And then once Christmas and Q4 comes around, I'll start selling 50 to 100 units a day. And things really start to pick up. And so like that particular product, it does have a shelf life, but like it still is selling. It's still profitable for me to keep. And then Q4, it just really crushes it. And then there's other products that it was kind of my issue where like I would still be selling them to this day, but I was just inexperienced. I didn't understand how to properly manage inventory, properly manage the supply chain and all of that. And so that's where products definitely phase out quicker. So if you don't understand the process, then a lot of times it's just because of inexperience. Those products will kind of come and go. But then there also are those products where you kind of hit the trend. And I have products like this. I launched a few products during COVID that were tailored around like hand sanitizer and masks. So like cases and keychain holders for hand sanitizer. And I was literally printing money. It was ridiculous. Like we're talking 6 figures a month with 40-50% margins, absolutely insane. And those products lasted, it was like 8 months. And after that, it just kind of dwindled. And it's like, hey, I rode the wave while I could. I made a lot of money. I do still have like 15 grand worth of inventory, but for the money that I made, definitely like it's totally fine. But yeah, that's a great question. Just like any product, like it kind of depends, but some do come and go.
Yes, I guess where you have talked, you said that you've done some Shopify stuff. You talked about the TikTok stuff. What do you recommend these days with like the longevity of products, really? Because I know the TikTok shop seems awesome, but how long was it going to last till they raise fees and stuff? Who knows? But what do you recommend really these days for that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question and I love it. And the kind of my focus moving forward right now, I mean, Amazon is a juggernaut. It's never going anywhere. Obviously, as you guys know, fees are continually to increase. Amazon makes certain restrictions and puts different things, and it maybe increases the barrier to entry a little bit. But it's never going anywhere, and it's going to be around at least like I don't see it ever going away. But in terms of the best and I guess newest opportunity that I see and what I'm kind of focusing on is I'm going to launch on Amazon because that's where I'm most familiar. I understand the ins and outs. I can predict like, okay, like I'm confident in this product because Amazon has the data to support it. You're able to do a lot of market research before you launch. And once I launch on Amazon, I am taking that product and taking it to TikTok immediately. And what's cool is like I know I will at least break even launching it on Amazon. And so there's not that much risk taking that product and launching it on TikTok. And so what I do is I launch on Amazon and then I take it straight to TikTok and there's no extra fees or extra heavy lifting involved because TikTok is a completely free account to have. The only time that you pay a fee is when you sell a product. And then when it comes to fulfillment and logistics, I actually have Amazon handle all of that. And so there's an app that you can integrate from Amazon to TikTok and it can talk to each other. And so when you get a TikTok order, Amazon is actually doing the fulfillment for those orders. And so for me, that's kind of my main focus is, hey, let's go to Amazon because we know that. And like it's a rinse and repeat process for me, but I go and launch it on TikTok. And just in the last month, I did over, it was like $21,000 and it was like my third or fourth full month selling. And my margins are 45%. So I'm making over $8,000 literally with the copy and paste with no extra effort and without really consuming that much risk because I already have the product at Amazon and I'm just going to take it to TikTok and my margins are kind of ridiculous. And so that's my strategy kind of moving forward is, hey, still leverage Amazon, but then take those products and leverage the TikTok platform. Because obviously you don't want to just put your eggs all in one basket. Like if you can kind of diversify, that's where I see the long-term potential.
Yeah, and I think from my understanding too, it's all kind of one ecosystem anyways. Like if you have a product that pops off from an affiliate, a lot of people are just going to buy it on Amazon. Like I wouldn't ever buy it from TikTok. I'm just going to look up the product on Amazon and see it. So it probably is like all kind of rotating, right?
And I've seen that with Shopify. So I do have a Shopify store for my products. And since I've been on TikTok, I've seen that flywheel effect just exponentially grow every platform because yeah, I do have a viral product that goes on TikTok and exactly what you said, people don't trust it yet. Like I get customer inquiries, messages saying, hey, is this actually legit? Like, is your company US based? And like, am I actually going to get the product? And I'm like, I guess people are still that skeptical of like ordering things online and that's totally fine. I'm like, no, we're legit. Like you can go check us out. You can check our website. You can check on Amazon. Like you can see everywhere. And so there still is that trust issue with TikTok. And so, yeah, they end up going to Amazon, which then helps the Amazon algorithm, or they go to my Shopify site, and then that helps with that because obviously my margins there are fantastic. If they are going to there, I don't have any fees. And so there's definitely an awesome flywheel effect that benefits everything.
Yeah, that's awesome. I feel like it's so tough to like figure out where you're going to start when you're starting this stuff. Like me and John, we tried to start a private label brand. It didn't work out very well. We kind of just lost a bunch of money before we even started. But I was like, man, should we just do it on Shopify or start doing it here? And TikTok Shop really wasn't around, I don't think, much when we were first doing it. But yeah, it's like where to start is the first thing. I guess it's like you start somewhere and then you expand out once you get started.
For sure. Shopify is definitely not the place to start, in my personal opinion, because it requires way more money and capital than, like, for example, Amazon. And most people don't realize that because Shopify, nobody knows you exist. You have to drive every person that comes to your site, you are driving that from external traffic sources. And if you're not running a lot of paid ads, then nobody's going to know your site. And paid ads are brutal. They're very tricky if you don't know what you're doing. And so people do lose a lot of money trying to drive traffic to their own website. And it's one of those things where like Amazon just has the trust and your own website doesn't have that trust yet.
Yep. I'm getting into the paid ad stuff now. It's definitely tough. It's like just so much to deal with all at the same time. But yeah, I mean, if you're going to get that external traffic, whether you have Google and Facebook, that's basically like the only options, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, John, you go ahead if you have any other questions.
Yeah. So I guess like you've launched a bunch of products, and what would you say would be your percentage of? So I obviously know you. I've met you in Miami. You've always had some products that didn't work out. So how many products have you launched? How many do you think have worked? I'm guessing you get better over time, but I'm sure there's that outlier.
For sure. So in the beginning, it was like every four, like 1 in 4 products would succeed. So it was like 25% type thing where it's like, hey, you're going to take some L's. But now where I'm at currently, I am confident every single product that I launch, I will at least break even. I won't lose any money. I will at least worst case scenario break even on that product just because my systems are kind of dialed in. I understand what I'm looking for and I have my criterias that obviously have been built over time. So yes, in the beginning, it was definitely a lot of learning and a lot of failing and just kind of adapting and adjusting and learning from those failures to then implement for future product launches so that I don't make those same mistakes. So I guess right now, like out of 10 products that I'm launching, I'll continue selling probably 8 out of 10 of them. So like 80% of them will continue to sell. Will they be an absolute winner for like the long term? Probably not. Like if we take 10 products, 2 of them, I might break even. We'll say another 6, I will like they'll be around and maybe in a year or 2 years, they'll slowly just kind of start to phase out like they were profitable. And then the other 2 or 3, they will be around and just really kind of excel and take off and be there for the long run. And so that's kind of, I would say, kind of the breakdown if I'm launching 10 products right now.
How fast do you get these out? Like, do you have a big team that you kind of can like launch quickly?
So yeah, that's a great question. It kind of depends on the product itself. So I just launched 2 products this last month, and they took me 9 months to go through the entire process. So like finding it, getting the manufacturing, doing samples, doing prototyping, doing testing, all of that. It was a really long process. Those are kind of outliers, at least for me, where most of the time, like I can find a product, get it sourced, get it manufactured, and get it up and running in like 2 to 3 months. But then there are those products where, like those 2 that I launched, like I got full on patents on them. I basically took a product and kind of started from scratch. So those like are definitely outliers, and that's why it did take so long. And for the average beginner, for the average person, they're not doing that at all in the very beginning. And so that might overwhelm people like, oh, I need to design something nine months and patents. And it's like, no, like that has been years of work building up to that point for me to be confident in putting, I think in that product launch, we're probably into it like 15, 17 grand or so in that particular launch. And for the average beginner, that's not kind of the route to go. But for most, I would say anywhere from like 2 to 4 months is kind of a good ballpark of like, hey, this is how long it's gonna take to get it manufactured and to actually get the process up and going.
So I guess for the beginner, what does private label look like? I know you teach a lot of beginners. I guess maybe we'll take a step back, even though we're already into it. Like, what is private label? What is kind of the typical process, and how could like people basically get started?
Yeah, so the biggest thing is finding a product, and this goes across the board, whether you wholesale, OA, RA, like just finding a product that sells, that has potential. And obviously there's different criterias that you're looking for in a private label product. You're going after a little bit different markets. But the cool thing, and I know a lot of your audience are either booksellers, they do OA, RA, wholesale. What's cool and what people don't realize is the skill sets that you guys have with retail arbitrage or online arbitrage or wholesale are direct carryovers to private label. A lot of the learning curves and the strategies and things that you're learning doing those models, you're basically implementing it with private label. And so for the average person, it's not as complicated as what people would make it up to be. But the first part is finding a product, so understanding like what to look for in a product. And then the second part is finding a manufacturer. And instead of finding a manufacturer here locally, you're basically going overseas and you're finding a supplier. And like I have, for example, a sourcing agent that is my point of contact, and they go and negotiate on my behalf. And so it's a very seamless process where somebody is basically finding the products for me. I just tell them what I want, and then they go do it for me. And then from there, it's just launching it on Amazon. And I would say that that's a little bit different, where with like reselling, you're not really launching, because you're just kind of carrying off the back of an existing brand. And then you just launch it on Amazon. And there's obviously strategies and techniques to launch a product and get it to page one, so that when people are searching for certain keywords, they can find it and they can buy it. And so I would say that's kind of a nutshell version for the beginner, is like, hey, just find a product, make it good, make it different, and then find a manufacturer and then launch it. And then it's just kind of a rinse and repeat process.
And how much does money play in starting capital into ads? So like if you have a lot of money, do you have an advantage when you're launching like the PPC, right?
Yeah, so in terms of capital, the more money you have, what I tell people is you have more of a wide variety of options to choose from. You're not as limited. And so the thing is if you have a smaller budget, you just have to find a product that fits that budget. Where if you have a little bit larger of a budget, you have a wider selection to choose from. And so like if you only have, let's say, $3,000, well, you're going to want to strategically use that money in the right way, so that when it does come time to launch, you do have money left over to actually be able to rank, and that you're not kind of shooting yourself in the foot. Because like I do see people that will spend money on inventory, and then they're like, oh, I'm not going to spend any money on launch. And I'm like, well, you're literally going to throw that inventory away if you don't put money into launching it. And so understanding like, hey, we're going to allocate this much for the launch, this much for the inventory, and make sure that we're kind of set up. And it all is kind of dependent and subjective on the product itself. And so I see products costing, like I've launched products for under $1,000, but then I've also launched products for close to $20,000. And so it's a wide kind of variety and a wide gap. And it totally depends on the market itself and the cost of the unit itself. And there's just so many variables that kind of go into the factor of like, okay, this is how much it costs. So that's a common question, is like, how much does it actually cost to start Amazon? And I'm sure it's the same thing with wholesale or RA. It's like you could probably start with $50 and you might order, 1 or 2 units, and technically you can start. And it's the same thing with private label. It's like, hey, you could order 100 units and you could start with $500, but it's like, it's all relative. And I feel like right now the perspective of most people's expectations of starting an online business is they want to make $1 million in their first month. And it's like, okay, if you're starting with $50, it's not going to make $1 million. Like, it's just common sense. Like, just do the math. And so that's another kind of expectation that people need to realize for all business models.
Yeah, if it's not like super service based, you didn't just go super viral, then your chance of making a lot of money is like literally impossible. You have to put capital in to get it out.
Yep.
Yeah, well, another thing I was curious about, I hear this a lot about these Chinese sellers that come in and just like tank these things. Have you saw that happen with you, and do you think Amazon's going to do anything about that? Or is it as big of a problem as people kind of perceive it to be?
In terms of rephrase, like Chinese like sellers coming in, or
yeah, where they just like copy the brand basically, and they're just ripping you off and just charging nothing because they have access to like the same data like you have access,
For sure. And I mean, if you look at like the big brands, and like for example Nike, Adidas, Puma, obviously I'm not going to be one of those big brands, but like you know how many knockoffs of them, like there's always going to be somebody that's trying to undercut you or sell for a lower price or whatever it may be. And so when it comes to private label, for me, how I'm able to basically offset that and not be as worried is I'm building an actual brand, where these Chinese sellers are just going in and trying to make a quick buck overnight, and they don't last for the long run. And I've seen this so many times where they come in and they come and go, and they're not there for the long run. And so my particular products, like, I'm not the cheapest, but I'm not the most expensive, but I've been around longer than anybody in the space just because I've been consistent. I have a good brand presence, and I've actually taken the time to do the necessary steps to build something long term, where I feel like a lot of the Chinese sellers, they're just in it for, again, to make a quick buck overnight. And that's just the strategy that is not going to work. Like, if you're in this to try to make as much money as quick as possible, reselling, private label, building a business is not for you, period. And I just feel like that's where most people go wrong. And it's the expectations that people have is the hardest part to get people to understand. Is and I mean, I promote things. I'm like, hey, like, you can go and make, let's say, whatever, $20,000 a month, and like, there's people on the internet that are flashing their Lamborghinis, their fancy cars, their watches, and it's like, that's what people are looking at, and like, that's the expectation. But it's like, it takes a lot of effort to actually get to that point. So I don't know if that answers the question of the Chinese kind of sellers. I mean, it's definitely something to look at. But if you do things right, you don't have as many issues.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. Yeah, I was more so just curious how bad of a problem it is, because, like, in my perspective, it's like, why do they even let that happen? Like, you're diluting like the quality of the whole platform doing that stuff. But I just see people talking about it, how they just keep making new accounts, they'll just undercut, and then they just burn and churn the account, right? They're just like, how can I undercut this product and get out of there? Which seems crazy that Amazon allows that. But
yeah, and so are you more referring to people like hijacking my listing?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, that I don't have that ever happen to me. I did at the very beginning, but it was because I didn't know what I was doing. And now, I have not had a hijacker on my listing in probably 5 to 6 years.
Oh, okay.
And so when you again structure your brand in a way that is an actual brand, like, the Chinese sellers know that you're experienced, and they know to not mess with you. And these sellers know, like, hey, if they come and try to take advantage of me, they know that I'm not going to put up with it, and I know how to get them taken down, where the average beginner, they don't understand that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
So you're making your first few thousand, somebody comes and hijacks, so that is a pretty sad reality. But
it is, yes.
Yeah, I think it's really funny when you're talking about, like, mindset or whatever, and kind of how you have to have that mindset. And yeah, it just has to have common sense. Like, I remember I got sucked into Amazon, so I actually started watching me Amazon. He put up, like, I don't know, like $10 million months or whatever. And I was like, oh, obviously he doesn't get $10 million. But I was like, oh, if I could only get like 10% of that, it's like $100,000. Like, that would be like totally cool. And that's kind of like what got me into it, and then started. And then, like, I'm a hard worker, so, like, I didn't really mind doing the work, and I'm like, I'm sure he didn't do that overnight. So I think a lot of people get, like, tricked by that, and then they're just lazy and don't do anything with it.
Yeah, so I get you teach a lot of people. What do you think some big, like, mistakes people make? Like, mindset more than anything, not just like technical wise. Like, what do you see common things in winners and common in people that fail?
Dude, honestly, the limiting belief is it's so weird. And like, I heard it when I first started, is like, it's all right here in your mind. And like, I didn't understand that. I'm like, what do you mean it's in your mind? That doesn't make any sense. Like, that's you're just telling me something that, like, you heard from somebody, and it's just like, it doesn't make sense to me. But like, in reality, the mind and your mindset is probably the most powerful thing of, like, what I see, like, the difference between somebody that succeeds versus not. And it's whether or not they're willing to just eat dirt for the first year and pick themselves back up no matter what, and not listen to the person in the back of their ear saying, oh, you suck, or oh, you're terrible, or oh, you're never going to succeed. The person that's willing to go through the hard days, the days where they're like, oh, I like, this is just tough, and the days that you don't want to get up and you don't want to go and scan products or go to the store to buy products or to spend time doing product research. Like, those are the people that have the grit, that have the discipline to just stick it out, those are the ones that succeed. Like if you are just willing to stick it out long enough, eventually you will figure it out. But people are not willing to stick it out, but for a week or two. Like I see this so many times. People are so stoked. They come to me like, hey, I want to sell. And they're fired up. Like I'm like, oh, this person is like so pumped. He's fired up. Like he's going to crush it. And then in 2 weeks, he's like, I haven't found a product yet. I think I'm going to throw in the towel. And I'm like, dude, it's only been 2 weeks. Like 2 weeks and you're already quitting. Like, what do you expect? Like, there's no job that you're going to work at for 2 weeks and all of a sudden make an extra $5,000 a month. Like, that's not how that works. So why is this how that works? And so I would say that is one of those things where it's just like people get in this weird mindset of like, they think it's just going to come to them naturally and it's just super easy and it's going to happen in a week or a month or even 2 months. And there, I did a Google search. The average business takes 2 to 3 years to be profitable. And people are complaining after two weeks, 3 weeks, or 2 to 3 months. And it's like, you guys understand that the average business takes 2 to 3 years. And if everyone was to actually put in the effort for 2 to 3 years, I guarantee every single person could succeed. It's just they're not willing to do what's required to succeed. So yeah, that would be, I guess, the biggest thing that I see with beginners. And then obviously there's the strategies and the tactics that they obviously miss out on. But I would say that's the biggest thing for sure.
It's so much self-belief, man. It's hard too. Like, so for a little context, I did OA like for the last 4 years. It was doing $2 million a year. And I quit basically in November of last year. Not that I wasn't making money. I was just like, I want to do something new. And I like haven't made a ton of money in the last 6 months. And I'm like, I can see where people lose their mind like around here of like, but I know that the mindset is just keep going. If you have self-belief, that's the whole thing. But man, it's at 2 weeks, you can't stick with the 2 weeks. It's just amazing to me. You were talking about the guys being pumped up. I swear there's a direct correlation between how pumped up somebody is and how fast they quit.
Yeah, probably.
Like when you have somebody that comes in, they're like, yeah, I'm ready to go. It's like they just do the work. And when they're super excited, you're like, oh, this is going to be great. Never is it great. It's always that's the person that blows out fastest.
100%.
Like in my experience. Yeah.
No, that's so true. I mean, I remember there was days where like I remember like it was yesterday. Like I would get a bad review or sales were down a little bit. And it's hard not to get down on yourself. And like I totally understand that. And that's where like the mindset comes in of like, okay, now I understand like the power of the mindset, because in those moments where you do feel defeated, those are the moments where you just have to push through and keep going. And eventually it will work out. And that's the thing is like over the last 8 years, like I've launched so many new businesses. I've failed. I've done different ventures, and every single venture and every single failure and every single time that I'm down and I kind of pick myself back up, I just become stronger and stronger. And so now it just becomes easier and easier. And now like when I see other people, like it's harder for me to relate because it's like, I know how you feel, but like where I'm at now, it's like, I wouldn't even bat an eye at that. Like you're worrying about something so simple and so like not even worth about worrying, yet they get fixated on it. And it's like, for me, it's like, just brush it off and move on. And it's obviously easier said than done, but yeah, it's definitely a uphill battle for most people. And I mean, just like you and me, like we're still facing with it to this day.
Yeah, it's tough. It's hard to even like put into words, I guess, because you hear so many. There's like a billion mindset videos, you know. And you're like you said, and I felt the same way. I'm like, what are you guys even talking about? Like, what is this mindset and stuff? But like, the more you go through it, I guess you just understand it more. But it's impossible to put into words until you go through it. Like the main thing is just like shit's gonna suck. Like that's the good part. That's like the fun part. If it's bad, like that's what creates the good, right? Like you can't just have good with no bad. That's the whole. It's just the way life works.
For sure.
That's what I always tell myself when I was starting an Amazon business and things weren't going well, or you get an IP complaint or just something weird. I always tell myself, this is where everyone else quits. Like if you get through this, like, and just keep going. And I kind of do that to this day too. Just like, hey, this is where everyone quits. Like if you're struggling here right now, there's a ton of other people. And like, if you quit, like, but if you can fight through this, you're going to win.
You got any more private label or TikTok questions for him, John? Or I have something very selfish to ask you, but I don't want to derail the conversation yet to ask.
No, go for it.
Okay, so I saw your Instagram where you have a Cybertruck, and somebody bought one recently near me. I was just looking up, and I was like, I have one pre-ordered. I got the email 3 days ago that it's ready to go. I can design it. And I just wanted an opinion. You're the first person I've known with one. So what's your opinion on the Cybertruck? And like, do you recommend it, or any of that stuff?
You need to have ordered that 3 days ago.
Oh man,
I'm serious. It is like people obviously love it or hate it. And the first initial reaction, I've probably taken 100+ people on like a ride now. Like I have neighbors coming, I have friends, family members, and people are like, it's kind of ugly, and I'm not a fan. And then they go and I take them for a ride, and their instant reaction is the complete opposite. Like, okay, this got 10 times cooler. I think I could rock it. Like I think I like it that much more. Like the driving, how fast it is, how it feels. It does not feel like a truck. So like I had a Raptor, and driving, that was my daily driver, and I hated daily driving it because it was too big. Trying to park in parking lots, trying to navigate downtown was just a nightmare. And so now with this, like it's a truck, like it's basically the same size as my Raptor was, but like I can turn tighter than any small like sedan. Like it's more nimble, it can go off-roading, it's freaking fast. It's seriously like the coolest experience. And like when I get in it, it's just an instant smile. And then when I'm driving, people are taking pictures, pointing, like it makes people's days. Like I go in a parking lot. This just happened a few days ago. I was at a parking lot. It was at Chick-fil-A, and a mom and their boy came up, and the boy was like, hey, like his mom was like, my boy wanted to see your car. Like, is it okay? I'm like, yeah, jump in it. And I let him get in the passenger seat, had the biggest smile on his face, and he's just like fired up. And it's as if I'm driving this $1 million supercar, even though it's not. Like it's getting that attention, and it's bringing like people, obviously on both sides. Like people get pissed. Like I've had people flipping me off on the freeway for no reason because they hate Elon Musk. But I would say more people are stoked and happy and put a smile on their face than be pissed off. So for me, it's probably one of the favorite cars I've ever owned. So I would definitely, me personally, I would buy it, but that's just me. And obviously I'm biased because I own one, but it's awesome.
Man, the second thing you said that was literally my next question. Good, you drove a Raptor. I know that's like the biggest possible vehicle you can get.
Yeah.
I hate big vehicles, so I like a small vehicle. But you saying that it turns like that too, that definitely sells me. I just don't like a big thing.
Yeah, it turns tighter than my Model 3 did.
Damn.
And like, so all 4 tires turn, and it has a steer-by-wire thing, and so like,
if you're still listening to the podcast at this point, you are into it and a fan, and we really appreciate that. If you could do us a solid and like, subscribe, and do all that stuff, it really helps the podcast grow. And secondly, if you could tag us on Instagram, just take a picture of what part you are at the podcast. If you like it, tell us what you think about it. Tag me at Side Hustle Experiment, and I will definitely share it. Now let's get back to the podcast.
It's the most trippy thing. Like when you drive it, you're gonna be like, this is weird. But then after you drive it for a day, you go drive a normal car and you're like, this sucks. I want to drive my Cybertruck.
You're selling me, man.
Yeah,
they need to give you affiliate commission for this thing. I'm sitting here looking, like it says literally order Cybertruck, estimated delivery June through August. I'm like, holy I don't know. I mean, yeah, the biggest problem that I had was the big vehicle, but the turning, I mean, that probably is going to help more than like anything.
Yes. I mean, do you have a place to store it, like a garage?
Yeah, I have one in like an apartment complex.
Okay. So I mean, if you have a place to store it and park it, what about a place to charge it?
There's a lot around here. I'm in Lexington, Kentucky, so there's it's decent city.
Okay. So for me, like another big selling point is I have a charger in my garage, and so I just like it's charging right now, and so every morning I wake up and it's fully charged. So I'm never having to go to superchargers or any charging stations because I just have a charger at my house. So I would say that's another big selling point, that why I like it. So like I hate going to gas stations. When I sold my Model 3, I sold it back in December. I had that for 4 years. One of my favorite cars. Now my new favorite car is the Cybertruck. But when I had my Raptor, my least favorite thing is going to the dang gas station. Like as silly as that sounds, it's inconvenient. It takes time. I don't want to see $120 go out of my card, because that's literally how much it costs to fill up my truck. And I'm like, $120, and this is terrible. Where now, like, I'm sure my power bill is maybe a little bit more expensive, but I don't notice it. So anyways, that's another kind of key selling point for me, having electric, is having like a place to charge it, like at your house.
Yeah.
I do remember seeing those reels. You were like filling up your gas tank, and you're like, "Elon, give me my Cybertruck now!" Like, I'm waiting for the truck. I was always laughing.
For sure.
Did you get the Foundation Series one? Is that what it is? Okay,
So,
do you know what the difference is between the two?
Does it let you order not the Foundation Series?
No, I guess it doesn't. It
Okay.
only lets you order that one.
Yeah, so when I went to order it, there was basically no options. It's like, here it is, and it's the Foundation Series. It's an extra $20,000, but it comes with the full self-driving. It comes with the autopilot, and it doesn't have that yet, which is kind of funny. So like, I don't even have autopilot or full self-driving. That's going to be an update that will come. It comes with like the little emblems on it. It comes with like the upgraded tires. It comes with like the standard white interior. It comes with the floor mats. So it just basically comes as decked out as you can get it. And that's kind of the Foundation Series, is like, there's no additional options that you could even get. It just comes stock with it.
This is like a Tesla commercial for the last 4 minutes. You've done such a good job selling this thing. I'm gonna have to highly consider after this. But that's very cool. What other questions do you have, John, not Tesla related?
I guess what's been one of the biggest challenges you've had to overcome in your private label business? Kind of how'd you handle it?
Biggest challenges are those times where you think something is going to go how you think it's going to go, but then it goes the complete opposite, and you're like, that sucks. And it's those moments where it's like, do I just throw in the towel? Do I just quit? Do I just give up? And like, I've had those moments where like I launch a product and like I mess things up, or like I get a bad review, or inventory is broken, or I labeled the products wrong, and so I have to resend them back and relabel things, and like things like that. Like, they're going to happen, and it's just how you respond to it. And I can't tell you how many times that has happened, where like I'll be up at one I guess pivotal moment was I can't remember what year. I think it was like 2020 or 2021. I was selling this product during Christmas, and I kid you not, I was doing $10,000 a day with one ASIN, with one listing. It was absurd. Like, I don't even know how it was possible. I was ranked in the office category, so like the BSR in office. Like, I was competing against like Sharpie, like tape, and like things like that, and I was top 10. And my product wasn't even relevant to those, like, in the office category. And what happened is that attracted and got some people really pissed. And it got sellers to where they somehow reported me internally, and it got my listing suspended. And it was my wife and I were actually up in Park City on basically like kind of celebrating, almost as like, hey, we're crushing it. We're making more money than I've ever made. Like, things are going insane. And then I got an email saying, hey, your listing is deactivated. I'm like, what? And it was because somebody reported me for copyright. And I'm like, what do you mean copyright? Like, this is all mine. Luckily, like that night, I didn't sleep. I was up till 2-3 o'clock in the morning figuring things out. And it was one of those times where like my heart just like hurt. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, this is terrible. And I obviously was able to appeal it, and I was able to get it reinstated fairly quickly. But like that moment, I was like, went from being on cloud 9, obviously doing 10K a day on a product where my margins are basically like 35% for that particular item. So I mean, $3,500 a day, that's ridiculous in profit. Yeah. And then going to basically zero, like, that hurts. And for most people are going to throw in the towel and quit. And like for me, I was like, no, I'm staying up all night. I'm getting this figured out. And I just kind of figured it out. So being a problem solver, I would say, is another thing. Kind of going back to Drew's question of like what separates a person that's successful and not, is being a problem solver. If you're able to go and find a solution to a problem and just fix it, like, that's where you're guaranteed to succeed if you can just solve problems.
Yeah, it's such a good point. I just saw a tweet today that was like, a top 3 soft skill is just being able to Google. Like being able to
Dude,
get on
it's
the internet and
ridiculous.
like look up stuff instead of like having to ask someone else every
Yeah.
one of your issues. It's like, dude, especially with ChatGPT, like there's very little questions that someone like needs to ask if you have ChatGPT. That it's
It,
just crazy.
nothing drives me more insane when somebody asks me a question that is as simple as clicking a few buttons and you'll get the answer. Like, don't
Yeah.
waste my time. Waste Google's time.
Yeah,
For
it's
sure.
definitely a big. You know, you think it's like obvious, but it's definitely not.
Yeah.
I guess it's like, well, I need to make sure it's the best information. It's like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't know any more than Google does, like
Yeah.
about basic questions like that. Yeah. Well, another thing on your brand, I guess, I meant to ask this earlier. Do you do any like organic social media marketing, or the product's not really like that, or the brand not really like that?
So on TikTok, 100%. So
Mhm.
TikTok organic is absolutely insane because TikTok is just pushing organic content right now. So that's one of my strategies. Like there's 3 ways to generate sales on TikTok. You can do TikTok organic, you can do TikTok shop affiliates, and you can do paid traffic. And the way that I start is I do organic content and I see like, hey, what's working, what can get some traction. And if it generates sales organically, then it's like, okay, I'm confident to put money behind it and actually spend. And then the same thing with affiliates is you can go and get affiliates. And if affiliates are performing well, they're organic content. I mean, TikTok shop affiliates, that's basically organic content from an affiliate. And then if that content's going well, you can also promote that to kind of scale up. So in terms of organic content, the only like real effective way that I've seen it work is on TikTok. Like there's no, like I guess organic is from being on Amazon. Like once you rank to page 1 and you're on organic, like you're organically ranked on the page, the first page, like that's the most powerful part of Amazon. But in terms of like social media content and organic posting, TikTok is by far the best way to go there.
I saw something recently where Meta and Amazon have something together. I would say we'll probably see somewhat soon Instagram, where there'll be like an Instagram shop and it'll go direct from Amazon. I don't know. You can look me up, make sure that's right, but I'm pretty sure there is something in the works there. Especially if not, TikTok's just probably going to take over that sector. I'm sure they have something working up there.
Well, I know YouTube has been talking about it. Instagram tried, like they do have like Instagram shops right now, but it's not obviously like a big thing. But I know for a fact, like YouTube, Amazon, Facebook, and Instagram are looking at TikTok and like, dude, we're getting screwed right now.
Yep.
Like we need to
100%.
do something similar. So like 100%. And as soon as that does happen, what's cool with like my skill set is it's so easy to just take over to a new platform and be on omnipresent on every single one, because if there's traffic, if there's demand for it, like why wouldn't I be there?
Yeah, with your skill set, like you said, it's like a gold rush because a lot of times it'll just be like a learning gap for a lot of people. That's why I'm so intrigued on this stuff, because I'm like, I think Instagram will have something probably better than TikTok Shop in the next year or two. Like I should have the skill set to be able to just like make a few $1,000,000 just going all in on that thing.
For sure.
Which I think like that's how people make all that money. It's just like you get a new opportunity and you just milk it while it's like really hot. No one knows what's going on.
And most people are too, so kind of change of topics a little bit with Amazon influencer program. This is exactly what I saw people kind of at the very beginning when I first started. People were a little hesitant. People were like, I don't believe it. It's too good to be true. People are like, no, you can't make money doing that. And now that I've been literally printing money for the last over a year, people are now like, oh, it works. I want to try it now. And it's like,
Yeah.
why were you so skeptical at first? And I feel like skepticism, is that a word? Like
Yeah,
people being skeptical like almost hurts them because they want to see proof. They want to see, I don't know, they need some sort of reason to give them permission to go and do it. And it's like the reason that I've been successful at so many different things is because I literally don't care if I fail. I will try it, and I will try it myself until things go good or things go bad. And I feel like so many people are like waiting for this perfect opportunity, and the reality is the perfect opportunity was yesterday. Like stop delaying and stop waiting. And it's the same thing like with TikTok Shop or with Amazon influencers, with selling on Amazon, and with this Instagram thing. Like when things come out, people are so skeptical at first and they like wait, and it's like, no, dude, the best time to jump on it is when it first launches. And if it doesn't go well, it doesn't go well. Like it's not the end of the world. Like I have other things. So that is something that's huge. And I do feel like a lot of people need to understand is like when there's a new opportunity, just go for it. Don't even second guess and just full send. And the worst thing that can happen is you might lose a couple $1,000s. Like worst case scenario, like that's it.
And you don't need permission. That's like the big part.
Yeah.
That's a lot of limiting beliefs is like all the questions people ask. It's like they really are they're just asking for permission, even advice. A lot of times it's like, I just want you to tell me that I'm not an idiot. Like I'm doing okay. But it's like, dude, you got to believe in yourself and go for it. Right.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think that's a good argument for why a lot of this stuff won't get saturated. Like even the Amazon influencer program, like I'm hearing more and more, and I'm doing it. Everyone's like, "Oh, it's going to get saturated. These people aren't going to make money." But I think it's those people that you were just talking about, like the people who are like, "Oh, like I don't know, should I start it? Should I not start it?" And that is like a no-brainer. Like requires no capital to start, and like if they're not starting it when it requires no capital, and it's kind of like, is this real or not? Like they're not going to do it. They'll do it for a little bit and be like, yeah, it didn't work. But meanwhile, they made like 10 videos.
It's sad. I wish people could understand the opportunity that we have at our feet. And to be honest, that's why I don't really feel bad for many people, because it's like, dude, we're all in the same, like we all have the same opportunity. It's just whether or not you're willing to capitalize on it. Like, sure, we might come from different backgrounds or different families or live in different places, but like if you have access to the phone, internet, a computer, like it's an equal playing field. Like just stop making excuses and go for it.
Yeah.
That's probably a good way to close it off. You got anything else on that? That was a good inspirational speech to give.
No, I mean, that's it. I guess one last question, then tell people where they can find you. It seems like, well, you're like very positive and, you know, there's enough for everyone. Do you think you develop that over time, or do you read a lot of books, or you try to stay motivated all the time, or how did you kind of develop that? Because it's kind of rare, I feel like.
For sure. And it's happened over time, for sure. And it's having this abundance mentality, and it's been very interesting. Like if I look back at my journey of the last 8 years of being an entrepreneur, when I am closed off and I have this non-abundant mentality and I'm like, oh, I just want it me, I make way less. And like when I want to protect things for me and I just want to do everything for me, things are not as good. But when I'm out, and as silly as this may sound, like when I'm out at a restaurant, I don't even look at the price. I don't even look at anything, and I just order, and I'm like, just get whatever you want. Like when I'm in those mindsets, for whatever reason, things just flood back to me faster. But when I'm in the mindset of like, oh, I'm not going to get a drink because I want to save $1, or oh, I'm not going to get a steak tonight because I can get a pasta and it will save me $15. Like just little like mindset shifts like that. Like as soon as I'm more abundant in just my day-to-day purchases, obviously don't be stupid. Like I'm not saying that, but like little minor things like that, when I'm not as conservative and like just kind of hoarding for me, and I just more freely give and spend, more comes back to me. And it's a very interesting thing. And the more that I've been in the game, it's like, dude, there is so much for everyone. And for people to think that only one person can have it, like, no, that is not true at all. And it's like, you look at Amazon and eBay. Like if I was the owner of eBay, dude, I'd still be stoked. Even though Amazon has taken 50%, it's like, dude, I'm still making a bajillion dollars. Like I like there's still market for somebody outside of Amazon. And so like having that abundant mentality is definitely a very key kind of like a key facet in like the progression of my journey, and has definitely allowed me to continue to scale and grow to that next level. I know that was kind of all over the place, but
No,
not
that was
articulating great, but that's yeah.
I do the same stuff when I go out, dude. I love hearing people say that. It's like, don't look at the menu. I tip good. It's like that. I don't know what it is.
Tipping big. That's
It's like an energy thing, man. Like the more scarce you are, the more scarce you get. Like it gets back to you. I don't know what it is, but I've noticed that as well.
Yep.
Cool deal. Where can everyone find you?
So yeah, super easy. You just Google or search Trevin, Trevin Peterson with an SON on any platforms, Google, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. You'll find me pretty easy, and you guys can reach out to me. And if you guys have any questions, I'd love to help out where I can. Just don't ask me any stupid questions that you can ask or answer on Google.
Boom. All right. Well, thanks so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Like, subscribe, all that stuff, and we'll see you guys on the next episode.
Peace.
So-
Thank you.